Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mid-Block Under the Microscope with myself, Warren Hackett, FAYCD, and I've got the pleasure of introducing my colleague, Paul McGuinness, Senior Coach Educator. How you doing, Paul? You okay?
Hi, Warren. Yeah, good to be here.
Good, brilliant. Okay, so session aims today, we're going to utilise in observational skills, further interrogation of using the Quadrant tool, recap on key factors, observing connections between players on, around and away from the ball. And here's just a typical diagram of England DNA at possession, compact shape. So as you can see, show away from goal, keep them wide, stop crosses, keep compact shape, no through passes, mark, cover, defend, the goal. Okay, Paul, can you just go through the observational skills diagram for us, please, for the learners?
Yeah, very simple here, really, Warren. Well, we've done it before on other blocks on the A license. Really saying, you know, we're not just looking at the whole team shape. We're here really zooming in under the microscope and looking very closely at the one-on-one duel a lot of the time. What are the responsibilities of the players, both on and off the ball, against their opponents? It's never really one-on-one. Everybody else's position does affect that one-on-one duel, but it's a way of just focusing in so that we've got the details and the key factors to coach the players with.
Okay. And on this, Paul, sort of the before, during, the after?
Yeah, very, very important. You know, we're not just looking away from the ball when the ball's on the other side of the pitch. We've got to look at what the players are doing before the ball comes to them, you know, during their interactions between their opponents, and maybe after receiving, what does the defender do against the attacker? And when he's played it off, what does he do then? Once he's played and run, maybe. So it's really zooming in and paying attention and focusing on the whole duel before it happens, during the actual physical component of it, and then what happens afterwards. And definitely to think about that, not just on the ball, but near the ball and away from the ball as well. Yeah, and then we're using the guide. It's just a guide. It's nothing too complicated, really. We're just putting an area around the players. And in that sense, we're using the quadrants as a guide to say, well, what would be the best position here? Maybe the defender in black is ball side, goal side, stopping the route to the goal. So we're looking at what spaces the attacker's trying to exploit, which ones the defender is trying to really defend. What's the priorities? You know, so behind him is obviously a priority here. He doesn't want the attacker to go behind him. Yeah. And in that sense, I quite often say, well, what's the force field within that zone? Where can the defender get to? And where's he going to be first? So in this case, he's going to be first, getting to the most danger behind him. He'll maybe let the attacker have the ball in front of him a little bit, but be ready to go tight and apply force and pressure then.
Okay, brilliant, Paul. Okay, so what are the challenges that the game presents when out of possession in a mid-block? So I'm just going to go through a couple of different scenarios with you. So the first thing I'm going to go through is basically, I'm a number 7, I'm a wide player, and my role and responsibility here is certainly to think about how I'm going to mark my opponent, who's the fullback on the outside of me. So I've decided to take my position slightly higher in the quadrant, and I've got two things in mind when I'm thinking about this. First thing in mind is I'm thinking about, you know, marking my opponent and ready to press. I've decided to mark him slightly advanced, but he's in my eye shot. So that really makes sure that my hips are open, my shoulders are open, and my head's on a slight swivel so that I can see that if he goes too far, I can adjust my position. Second thing I need to consider is obviously blocking off the pass line inside to the wide player who's rolled in. So there's a job and a half here. So that's really, really important that if I'm too far right or I'm too far left, I'm going to have less effect on both players. So my positioning is really, really key in this. So again, making sure I've got that open body position and I'm constantly swiveling and checking and scanning to see where my fullback's gone. On the next one now, once the pass has been played, it's really about me recovering into that inside position. And that inside position will obviously get me closer to the fullback, but really thinking about just keeping him down one side and also considering me screening the wide player inside again. So again, two jobs, looking at getting some pressure potentially on the man on the ball would be in the fullback, and obviously screening the man inside who's rolled inside who can be a threat to me. But while that's going on, it's really, really essential that the players around me, especially to my fullback, can protect that space behind. I'm showing their fullback into. And obviously with him doing that, sliding across, there's my right-sided centre-back marking on the outside shoulder of their centre-forward. My left-sided centre-back closing in the space and linking up with my right-side centre-back. And obviously the furthest away will be in the left back, making sure that he's linked with the centre-back to give us a real compact shape. So then we're looking at the 1v1 duel. So if I'm successful enough, when I'm in this 1v1 duel, as I'm on my approach, it's essential that I don't dive in. Because if I dive in, I'm out the game. So as I'm coming in, I'm patient. I'm looking to get as close as possible. I'm kind of knees bent, arms stretched out, and I'm really, really trying to get as close as I can to get my body into my opponent to try and unbalance him, to try and regain possession, if possible. If I can't get close enough to him, I'm patient and I'm making sure that I'm in a position where I'm screening the passing side and really forcing him and trying to set the trap so that he plays down the outside. If I am fortunate enough and I do get into his body and I do win the ball, it's obviously making sure that I've got that awareness to be able to scan ahead for the counter attack. So it may be a real quick pass into my striker, or it might be a pass in behind to try and set off our attack. So although my mindset is about defending, I've always then got that second picture of, if I win it, what can I do next? Okay, Paul, do you want to go through what skill attributes that players require in order to overcome the challenges that the game presents?
Yeah, sure. I think we've used this sort of model now and a checklist of key factors. And it very much all that you've just talked about there is within all this, Warren. So first of all, context, what type of player you're playing against. If that fullback's a real flying machine, then you might have to just adjust your position a little bit more to make sure that you're a little bit deeper, to make sure he can't get there. Might be the centre forward is the most dangerous player in the team, so you're trying to cut that line off. That's the biggest priority. The fullback may be less of an attacking player. So all these things come into it, your strengths and weaknesses against your opponent. And as you've just said, position, it's easy to put it on a tactics board and say, there's your positions. But of course, the game is moving. It's fluid all the time. So that means you'll have to scan. The scanning on the left-hand side there, you'll be scanning, checking both ways behind you and to the wide man. And each time the ball moves, the angle will change slightly, won't it? So you'll have to adjust your position. And that's due to your scanning and your perception. I'll leave out anticipation and communication for now, because I think they're encompassed in everything. But then your movement skills, what's your body orientation? Are you chest forward? Are you side on? Are you back to goal? So here you'd be probably a little bit open, ready sideways forward with your right foot, maybe a little bit further to the back, because you're going to push off to cover that fullback going forward. So all of these things are in everything that you've just talked about. And your movement skills, yeah, I say body orientation to start with. Are you open? Are you able to see both ways? Is it able to be, if it starts to be a race, are you able to swivel your hips quickly and chase over quickly and make the ground up? And that's where maybe, your scanning anticipation comes in. Because the first thing in that duel is, depending on the weight of the pass and so on, you might be able to anticipate by looking at the passer's feet, eyes, that it's going to go out to your man. You might get in front and make an interception. As you said before, in that duel, you'll be already getting over there quick, but you'll have to slow down quick, otherwise you sell yourself. So the movement skills are vital. And then I think the context comes into it. That's that whole intent. Are you, as your coach, and has everybody got into you that the idea you're going to win the ball if possible, or are you the type of team that just sits off people and are quite easy to play against? Ideally, you'd want to be getting into what I'd call fighting distance. You're in there ready. If they make a mistake, you could be in. You can make a stab for the ball. I like that idea of being able to go forward and back in fighting distance. But you're also aware, again, in context, if he beats you as a defender and you've sold yourself, then you've got to be really careful. You've got to be sure if you're making that stab to the ball. Good coach I used to say, as a defender, you're a little bit like a snake. You've got that venom. You're ready to make that dart in, but if you miss, your venom's gone and he's past you. So all those things, I think, come into the context of it, and then that's the timing of all those things. And it's a constant process of reassessing for the players. It's not just a run through, with no players there, where it's shadow play. You're in this position, that position. You've got to be reading the opposition's body language and the movement of the ball constantly. And in that sense, yeah, the technique of your challenge, how you get your arm in, and so on, would be vital. And of course, deception. Sometimes you might deceive the passer by looking as though you're going out towards the fullback, leaving a space inside, and then at the last second dive back inside and intercept. So all those things are in there, I think, are really important. And we'll see some of those things coming up in the clips that we show. And within all of that, it really is perception, action, coupling. You're anticipating by looking at all the cues all the time, and you're looking for the communication from the opposition, but your own players. So one player showing a player down the side, like you're doing, would communicate to the players behind you, to the centre, to the right back, the centre backs, to all move over that way. So anticipation and communication are within all your actions, I think. Yeah.
And it's interesting, Paul. You mentioned about, if the opposition fullback's a flying machine. My start position there, after as the game kicks off, you've got half an understanding of who you're playing against. But if it's the first time you played against him, that might be my start position. But as that ball gets played in, I find out that he's really, really quick. When this picture comes again, I have to adjust, because I might have to come a little bit deeper now, because he might just get past me too easily, too comfortably, that I might have to adjust. So, although we're showing you we're capturing this moment now, this could be completely different depending against the opponent you're playing against. Because again, with pace, I may have to be a little bit closer in respect of a little bit deeper, so that I can engage him and cut across him, rather than giving him that sort of couple of yards on me where he's quick and I might not be able to catch him. So again, things do change. And I think
I think so. And this is, you have to give the players the tools to understand all these things. Definitely reading your opponents and then adjusting your position would be key ones. And these are the tools. These are the key factors that the players have to understand in order to get to the right position. So, right, what's your position? Well, that depends on the strengths and weaknesses of the opponents. How will I know that? Well, I've got to be scanning and checking all the time. All of these things are part of making sure that it's not just a game plan, but the player can adapt within the game plan for himself, depending on the situation.
Yeah. And again, I just think, I've touched on, of not going too early. So the timing really of my movement is essential. Because as I said, if I do go and step across too early, they can play inside of me. If I step across too late, the fullback can win the ball. So it's a real sort of detailed approach that I'm coming in here with. And if I get something slightly wrong, that could have a detriment onto the rest of the team. If I go too high here, fullback gets it, my fullback gets dragged out, he gets beat. It has a knock-on effect. So it just goes to show, under the microscope is a real detailed, and it's about, the timing, the scanning, your technique, your movement, your anticipation. If you get that slightly wrong, you can get punished. Yeah,
and I think that's why, to sort of encapsulate all of that, I use the idea of the animal characteristics, the predator characteristics. They've got to be alert. They've got to be adapting. They've got to, be hungry, to get to the ball, but also be clever enough not to reveal their hand all the time. It's really trying to help develop cunning players who can read the situation against their opponent. Definitely.
Brilliant. Okay, Paul, can you just talk about,
just again, we're repeating what we've done in the other parts, but to check this, we've got to be observing the players. So while we might want to watch the whole game and watch all the system of play and all this, that's important. If you want to develop the individual, then we have to look at them step by step. So we start with the head, Warren, and move down. One of the key factors there, if you click it on, is that we would start through the head and look at the scanning skills. So if you spend too long in that situation you were at, Warren, looking at the ball or looking at the man, then the picture changes. And you can lose position, you can lose your player. So we have to look at the observation, the frequency, time, and the scanning skills. How long does he look at the ball? How long does he look at his man? Is his body position open? Does he check behind him to have a little look where the defender, where he is, where the striker is behind him? So all of that is vital in getting to the right position. But again, I think it really does need to be trained and coached. But the real incentive is that, you're clever. Look at the interceptions you're making. Look at the positions you're making. I think as well with this, especially with young players, but you have to praise it because it's all stuff that's going on unnoticed a lot of the time. People don't notice it, and young players need praise for things when they're doing it well. So that might just be a little thumbs up. Yeah, I saw you. I caught you doing that. Really good play, and that made a big difference to our defending because you shot off that angle. Quite often, unless it involves the ball and a tackle or something, when they're young players, they don't realise. Nobody realises they've done it well, but they definitely need praise for this type of work. Yeah.
I mean, again, Paul, when you're talking about moving the head and seeing what's going on in front of you, as you said, if you leave your head sort of looking at the ball for too long, that's exactly what the opponent's waiting for. You've taken your eye off of me. I'm going to run off the back of you. I'm going to come across the front of you. But that constant head movement is, to see the ball, see the man, your head's constantly on a swivel, moving.
Yeah, and I keep going back to the same analogy I use, when can you get young players to do that? When they're going to look around. It's the same as when you have your own kids crossing the road. Do you look left? Do you look right? Do you look left? You just keep training them because why? If not, they're pretty much dead on the road. It's dangerous. Now you're playing in the back four anywhere on the pitch, really, and you don't look around, it's going to be a goal. So in that sense, you're going to be dead as a defender. So, it's that serious that we have to really train it, I think, and encourage players to do it.
Okay.
And again, this is, both in off the ball when you're trying to look and observe and see where players are, but then definitely in the duels that you were talking about, using your arm, getting your body in. So I think this is coming more and more important in the game now because the interpretation means you can't slide in and tackle, you can't tackle from behind, but you have to be very good now in body-to-body contact and using your body as a barrier. So first of all, can you get in the right position, your feet in the right position, and so on, to get inside the shape of the player you're playing against? Can you dispossess them? If not, can you get to the side of them, use your body to disrupt them, to unbalance them, and to maybe get a toe in? So all these would be vital, to really observe and see what the best players do, and then try to get that into your players. And again, it is in context because you've got to be clever. If the guy's 2 stone heavier than you, then maybe you have to be clever and not get contact. You want to get in front of him without getting the contact when you're defending. So and quickly in and out of his space. All relevant on context.
Paul, do you think there's enough of this that's sort of factored in when you're talking about practice design and people actually practicing these skills of using their body and using their arms when they're going against these ones?
No, I think the culture, as I said, in England, wet, heavy pitches, sliding tackles, everybody loving that part of the game. We were all involved in that, Warren. It was part of the whole makeup of it, and it was enjoyable at the time, if a little bit scary at times. Yeah. But now that has pretty much, it's evolving now into it's a more skillful way of doing it with your body and getting in front. So it definitely needs teaching for me. Yeah, definitely. And if you look at, say, the South Americans, probably in their culture and so on, they're brilliant at getting their body in front and down the line and being crafty in that sense. And they're not. It's not illegal. It needs to be legally done, but being very crafty at using your body, getting in front of people. If we're in a race for the ball, then we are allowed to step across the line if it's in playing distance. So step across their line, block their route to the ball, as long as you're in playing distance. Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about the footwork now.
Yeah, and exactly the same thing. Looking at the footwork, the foot patterns, opening your hip as you turn quickly, so you turn quicker, and your first stride is now back towards your own goal to get across across the striker. Sharp footwork, so it's really important to get out to people quick, but to also slow down quick, decelerate quick, and then be able to push off again. And I think here the idea of the lines of force are important. You don't want to get caught flying in towards a guy just as he's moving the other way against you. So you have to make sure you sort of match his movements. And again, small foot patterns when you're close to them, and then opening your stride length later on. If you've got big, long strides in the first part of the movement, then you can get caught on the turn, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly with this one, Paul, I'd certainly say from my experience, it was the more times I was put into this moment and situation, the better I got at it. Because I was, when I was younger, I had pace, so I used to get up really quickly, but then didn't sort of slow down quick enough when I was on my approach, and I got beat. That was only, my brain sort of started to think, well, hold on a minute, Warren, you're getting caught out here. You need to start slowing down a little bit earlier. So as I got more experience in these situations, I was able to get up close and then obviously to change direction quite quickly, and then to be able to sort of either step across a marker or to be able to intercept the ball. So again, a difficult thing to learn as a kid, for sure, how to use your foot patterns correctly, certainly when you're going to press the ball.
Yeah, I think the thing you said at the start was important. Can we get realistic practice that's likely to come up in the game and repetitive, the right distances you've got to travel, then stop, then go, maybe a fullback against a winger, centre back against a forward, and then repeat it. And the key thing is you have to give the key points, get the coaching, and some of the foot patterns just need to be done on the side of the pitch or at home, slowly first, and then built up. Yeah.
And obviously the balance as well, Paul. So we talk about the footwork, but the balance that comes towards that, changing direction and being able to sort of open your arms out to be able to change direction rather than having them sort of by your side, just to help give you that type of push off balance feel that when you're changing direction that you've got that support as well.
Yeah, one of the key factors really in the duel is who has the balance. So that's the lines of force. If someone's pushing one way and then the other, can you rebalance quickly? So then you're looking at your jockeying movements, how wide apart are your feet? In your balance, you want a nice stable position. Instead of being bouncing up and down, you need to dig your studs in so that you're ready to push off, because that's your starting point for the sprint. Whereas if you get caught bouncing in the air, if you're in the air as he pushes off, you've got to come back down before you can push off. So things like that, really important, getting your balance and a stable sort of foothold. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what does this look like within a game? So if we can, we're going to just observe some videos now for you to watch.
Great. Yeah, interesting to just look through here. They're dropping back in front, the front three, just cutting off passing lines to start. You see from above, just starting to cut off passing lines. They've got their job in front, which might be to mark their man in front of them, but behind them, they're starting to cut off passing lines. And now they start to force the ball wide, and you get an interception. So we'll go through this in more detail now, Warren.
Yeah.
But that's a good overview to just see exactly the tactics to drop in, to stop the ball going through the middle. So here, Harry Kane straight away stopping the forward pass. Marcus Rashford really stopping the forward pass there, looking over his shoulder. Twice he's looked. Yeah. That's preventing the ball going here to the player ahead of him. It's buying time now for everybody else to get in position. So he's delaying. And now, Harry Kane's coming back. But now you see Mason Mount. He's getting in line here with the two players in front, stopping the ball into the midfield and also to the wide man, because he's got in line. It's a use of the quadrant. So he's cutting off space. You say marking space. He's marking the passing line and the space into midfield. He's also got his player in front he can spring out to, but again, he's stopping the passing line, making it difficult to get it to both those players further ahead.
And as I said, Paul, there's so much going on within this. We're going to look at, Walker and I forgot his name here. So, and James as well. If we look at this situation arising here, we're looking at James. He's looking at the player in front of him, and if I just hold the video there. So what we're looking at is the passing lane to the inside Belgian player has been shut off really, really well. So I'm now saying that potentially James can start getting on the same line as the back five here now and think about the threat on the outside of him, because the passing side of him has been blocked off. And I think Walker's actually pointing. You can see he's got his arm up. He's actually pointing in that wide area. So I think, the adjusting of the position to James is really key here to make sure that he sees the ball and sees the man in front of him. If I just let it play. So he's kind of gone there and then he's had to adjust. And I'm saying now, can he get in the same line as Walker? And he can see both, because the passing side's been cut off. He does really well, recovers back into shape. But again, if the duel's going on all over the pitch.
Yeah, now you see the midfield player. So there's his direct opponent, and Marcus is cutting off the pass behind, and now he can do two jobs, you know. So Rice has got his man to mark in front of him, but also he's cutting off that passing line there. He's stopping that by getting in front of the inside forward. He's just getting over, and now, as you were doing really on your clip before, he's now showing outside. He's making the ball. Now there's a speeding up, and you see Rice sees his chance and comes into that space in front to mark the space and screen in front and intercept. So there was definite a reading of the signals. Marcus communicating, I'm showing him outside, and then Declan Rice, you know, winning that ball and now looking ahead, very much so here. So again, you see now as Marcus goes quick, now you see Rice really start to speed up just there. He knows it's on. He knows the interception's on. That's that change of speed, the timing you were talking about.
Yeah.
And of course, I think Trippier had read it as well. But that's because they'd forced to play wide. Marcus Rashford's body language has sort of directed the play down that side, and that enabled them to sort of speed up their defending. So I would say they're in the long grass, they're waiting, and that predator then comes out, bang, out of the long grass to make the kill and win the ball in front of them. Yeah, that's a really good play, I think.
Okay. Just cue in the next video, please.
But I think the point you made before about Walker and James, it's that adaptability as the picture changes for them. You know, James started to push in, which meant Walker was worried about the man outside, started to cover. Then he readjusted once that Mount had cut the line off inside. So now James was going outside. Maybe, as you said, was a bit keen to get tight, but then dropped back off once he read the situation. So it's a constantly evolving situation. Yeah. We, as coaches, we can't just coach a pattern. We've got to coach the thinking behind it for the players. So they're adapting constantly in action, yeah.
For sure. Okay, so if you want to just cue this in.
Yeah, and again, this is a similar clip because he's showing outside again. They're looking to try and trap them in here. But then it goes out on the inside and Walker reads it with Mount. So again, that sort of back tackling and interception comes at the same time. But again, you know, if we look here, Calvert-Lewin is going off the signal here. They want to go outside. As Marcus shows outside, Calvert-Lewin, you know, goes with him to cut the ball back. You've now got inside midfield. He's looking and checking, and they're ready to go tight here to sort of pincer movement and with the back tackle. So, yeah, this body movement of Marcus now gives the signal for Henderson. Henderson's looking here. He knows there's a chance to back tackle and get across there. They know they want to maybe play it into feet. You had a point here, Warren, didn't you, about the centre-back coming in maybe?
Yeah, my point there simply was just potentially could Maguire sort of get on his outside shoulder and look to intercept potentially here? You know, can he try and get on his outside shoulder instead of being directly in behind him? But again, small detail. He's kept him going opposite direction. But again,
yeah, but once he has gone in there, the two defenders here, Trippier and I think over in there, centre back coming in ready to drop deep because he had some time on the ball and cover.
Yeah,
because it's come square, Walker's able to read it and intercept. Yeah. And Mount, they're both, you know, really reading the cues. That's that position, scanning, movement, be ready to intercept, timing.
I just think this one here, when we're talking about Walker, we're talking about Trippier and Dyer dropping, and we're talking about Walker now anticipating. There's a little risk and reward here. He doesn't drop in tandem with his back three. He kind of is on his front foot and he looks to nick it. So again, good defending, but again, a little bit of risk and reward. And again, if you talk about Alexander on the outside, could he potentially have got deeper and opened his body up so he could see the ball and see the man?
Yeah, and that's that adaptability in the moment, isn't it? If one of the centre backs is going in, then the others will need to maybe drop and narrow, mightn't they? And the full backs narrow. That would be the normal thing. But again, body position, can they get a little bit down the side? None of these things are going to be perfect all the time, but we're looking for these details in our coaching constantly. Yeah.
Okay, we play next video, please.
Yeah, I think here we've got a clip of the midfield three. We're looking at that for Tottenham. here, this little bit, maybe slightly, just leaves a little gap here, then Bo, I think, and Noble. But here, now they're tight, they're hard to play through. Winks is over, Dyer is over, they're looking to cut, and he's looking around for the spaces, looking for any gaps. Again, they go over together, no gaps, and they're checking. Dyer's ready to come up to the ball, but he's now back into position quickly to stop any gaps. Again, over to the ball, trying to stop the forward pass. Again, over. 3 of them working together, and eventually they get a block and an interception.
They're really patient.
And again, we'll highlight 1 or 2 details again, Warren.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through the clip there. I think the big thing for me is the midfield 3. They're all connected in a little triangle here, with Dyer being the deepest one. They're really patient in their shape. They don't dive out to things that they can't get to, but they're putting enough pressure on the ball just to say, hey, you're in control, but we're going to nick it eventually. They get played through here. But
yeah, you'd maybe say that was a slight mistake. He could have been a little bit further back there, couldn't he?
I think so. And it just forces the opposition to have to play outside you than through you.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they recover back into a real good shape now, and now they're forcing the play wide again.
Yeah,
they've got a nice shape here.
Look, the little look there from Dyer, having a look around.
But they're still saying to him, you're not going to play for us. If you want to play forward, you're going to have to play around us.
Yeah.
And again, they slide as a free across here. Same again.
Head there from Winks, checking around.
Yeah. And again, getting up to the ball is essential because they can still play in behind if there's no pressure on the ball, which is good. So Dyer comes out, jumps out, and then gets back into shape again.
Yeah, we used to call that a little arrowhead, the one up to the ball and the other 2 narrow in, so there's nothing in behind. Once it goes back, he drops back in, next man's up. So again, Winks is reading it. He's stopping any passes. Again, he's checking Dyer's. He's making it really difficult. 3rd man's over. Block this pass inside now. Makes it difficult.
Yeah, very good.
And again, with all of those, you'd be looking at position, scanning, movement, deception sometimes to leave a gap. You'd be looking at timing, technique, all of the things that we're talking about within the sort of model, to just so that we've got a checklist to go by. Again, the scanning be really important, and understanding they're doing 2 jobs. They're marking the guy in front of them, but they're definitely looking to stop that passing line behind them. If the ball had gone behind them, they were close enough to the back 4 to then go and back tackle and recover. There wasn't a big gap behind them either, Warren.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a really good structured piece of defending, really. They seem like they're in control, even though they weren't in possession. They were pretty much controlling where the opposition were playing the ball. I know they got passed through once, and then they got back to shape, recovered, and then literally said, "You're not coming for us. If you want to play forward, you're going to have to go around us." No, good clip.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul, do you want to just go through this with us?
Yeah, well, we've done this a few times when we're talking about the actual 1v1 duel, and this might be on the ball. In this case, it's off the ball, where you've got Dyer getting into the space of Lukaku. And here I like to use that cylinder idea. Where are you going to run? Are you going to block their line off? What part of the cylinder are you going to get in? Do you use your arms? Do you use your legs? The timing of it is important. So again, we've got some freeze frame just to sort of go through that. And this was like he's looking to get through onto a through ball. Top left-hand picture on the left. There's a little gap between them, but his body's opened up and he's checking over his shoulder to be sure where Lukaku is, so he can react to any movement. And he's just ready. He's got enough space between him to react. If he was too close, then he could be gone. But he's got time to keep checking and looking at the ball, then check back, and then you start to see number 3. Now Lukaku's ready to go. His body movement, but you see also Dyer's legs are a little bit wider apart. He's ready to push off. He's side on in case he needs to run back. And now he's seen him start his run in number 4. So he's matching his run. He's making sure he can't get ahead of him. And in 5, he's doing the same. But now as it comes into it in 6, he's running across his line a little bit to block the line of his run. He gets his shoulder in front, which means he just can't get past him. And, really sort of good defending off the ball, the sort of thing you've just got to watch. It never came to anything because this is in the clip where Rice actually intercepted. But if the ball had been played over the top instead, then it means Dyer would have been the favourite to get to that ball in the space behind. And that's where I would say, if you're looking at those quadrants, he was making sure his sort of force field was strong enough to get to that danger area first, the most dangerous bit down the side of the pitch.
And these one-to-one duels, I mean, although it looks really, really simple here, Dyer's positioning and a distance away from Lukaku, it only takes the Dyer to turn up for a split second. And if he does go in too early, potentially Lukaku could run behind him off the back of him. If he switches off, Lukaku can come across the front of Dyer. And again, if Dyer's not strong enough and he gets too close to Lukaku, Lukaku can outmuscle him. So it's essential the distances that you decide to mark your opponent on off the ball as the play is building up. You need to obviously, you need to be goal side, ball side, and making sure that you're in a position of security to cover anything that comes over the top. But at the same time, you've got to mark your man. So again, although it looks really basic here, there's lots and lots of decisions to be made off the ball before the ball actually comes into you.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the case before where, it's a team effort. I think Marcus Rashford had shown it outside, and then, Maguire had gone tight, but then it was Rice who won the ball. So everybody's probably given Rice the praise. He's going up the pitch. But that's the point as a coach. You have to notice. You have to not just be looking on the ball, around the ball. You're looking away from the ball in this instance. And all that takes then is a little thumbs up to Dyer. Well done. You had it. We saw that. We recognised, you got in a good position. And, that would be then good coaching as well to just reinforce a good model of play for any young player, just to reinforce that sort of model and cylinder, that idea of that one-on-one duel is not just on the ball. It's something you're doing off the ball constantly as well. And giving praise for off-the-ball work is important, I think, particularly with young players.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, again, it's a skill, Paul, when you're looking at when you're looking at 6, 7 and 8 on the clip, that little bump that you'll potentially give him just to knock him off his stride might just be enough. And that's really, really clever, cute defending.
Yeah.
Little bump as he's just about to come across him.
Yeah, and this can all be done in little, fun games before training. Little games that you can devise where this type of thing, just getting used to contact, used to using your body, getting your shoulder in front, getting your thigh in front, all these sort of things, I think now are going to become more and more important. It's skills that we need to, it's an opportunity, I think, to upskill our young players. Whereas in the past, this would have been used, but some of them not used as much yet.
I mean, you mentioned earlier in the webinar about, certainly on the continent, them being really clever and skilled at being able to use their body. So it's definitely something that we can expand on, isn't it? Certainly with our practice design again.
Yeah, definitely. Just being creative, and these sort of things are little fun things that they get used to. Little warm-up games and so on, and then just bringing it into your match play definitely is an enjoyable way of creative coaching. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So we're drawing towards the end of the webinar now, and I'm just going to go through the process summary. So study top players within their 1v1 duels. Look at the real detail that some of the things that Paul and myself have gone through. And again, just using that quadrant tool to observe, identify key skills and movements, patterns of these 1v1 duels. Observe your players using the quadrant tool. Utilize your observations when planning, delivering, reviewing sessions. So again, you might have a centre back similar to this who needs to be exposed to that. Can you make sure your practice is more around that to get the best out of him and challenge him as best as you can? And again, Paul, certainly when you've been working with various players at Manchester United, I'm sure that there were sessions that you had to make sure that they sort of supported players' individual development?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and what I think you need to do is in your head have these little models in your head of what's a vision of good play. What players do what. Some players might be a big, strong player. Some might be a smaller player. What are their traits that you can pass on to similar players that you have? Those sort of characteristics, and definitely plan your sessions around them. So it's not just around the team, but well, what happens in this situation when that 1v1 duel comes up? How am I going to show my players the body shape they need to use to nip in front, to make that interception, to get in fighting distance, like we said before, to get their feet in the right place, to recover, and to be constantly scanning and adjusting. There's a lot to it, but I think you have to sort of zoom in so you've got a clear idea of, well, what will this session bring up, and how can I help sort of imprint a little model of or a vision of good play. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Paul, I'd like to thank you for your insights, your knowledge, and sharing some of your experiences with us. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope the learners can go away and take something from this. So thank you for that.
Thanks again. Thanks, Warren.
No problem.